Welcome back to our second episode of MIS DIY. I'm your host, Jason Knoll, Vice President MIS Solutions. And once again, we have Adam Ringland, our Operations Manager. We have two new guests this week.
Yeah, rotation.
Yeah, a little change up here. We have Austin Dones, who is a Systems Administrator, like level 21, right?
Sure.
There we go. And then we have Dwayne Taylor. He's another one of our VCIOs. Last week you met Nate Jewett. They work in the same department, just working with our partners and making sure that they have everything they need. So last week, just to kind of recap, we talked about business goals and IT strategy. We also talked about infrastructures. We also talked about road mapping and budgeting. And finally, we talked about monitoring our systems and how do we do that. This week, we're going to dive into infrastructures in a little bit more detail and talk about what we see going on in small businesses across the United States, especially in our area. And that's why we have Austin here, just so he can bring us the technical side. Even though I think everybody in the room is technical, it's just nice to see somebody who is a level 21 mage. And
He's updating his LinkedIn right now.
Yes.
Stop.
Yes.
So
we're just going to let you talk this entire time. We're just here to watch.
Yeah, I can't wait for that.
So let's talk about how hardware impacts small businesses and what we see when we're coming in there from network switches. When we say, of course, let me define infrastructure again.
Yep.
We're talking about IT infrastructures and not your building, your sprinkler system, and the other pieces that make up your kind of
your
facility.
IT hardware.
Yeah, we're talking about IT hardware. And so let's jump back into the components, what we like to see and what we see in small businesses and why they're not succeeding when they're trying to do maybe IT on their own and what they can do to improve their own infrastructures.
I think a lot of times these smaller businesses start with maybe 5-6 people and they continue to grow to 25. So when they began, they had the 5 to 6 people mentality. They're running out to Best Buy or Micro Center and buying what they think is top of the line because that's what they have at their house. And then what they quickly find is they add folks to their business. It's not working as good as it should anymore. This router I got for $82 at Best Buy, and it's broadcasting on my wireless too, and they just continue to go, and then unfortunately when we come in and we're like, okay, these are the recommendations. You guys are big boys now. You've done it. Congrats. You're making your business good. A lot of times they're like, I don't know why we need all this stuff. And then they quickly find out why they do.
I always love the one about wireless. Mm-hmm. It's wireless. I mean, it should just work, right?
Right.
And wireless is not magic. Wireless, it does connect back. It is a device providing that signal that is hardline back to switches and firewalls and providing that connectivity.
And I think probably 50 to 70% of the issues that when we meet prospects and we're prospecting and when we sign on new partners, 50 to 70% of their issues that they're frustrated about, they're losing efficiency about, is really because of, just like Adam said, we started with 5, now we've got 25. We don't have anybody that's really monitoring this stuff at all. And so when we come in, what we add is we kind of standardize those things and put them on not a consumer grade product, something that's supportable, it's easier to get to the bottom line. All of those things come into to play, but that's probably one of the biggest things that I see when we're prospecting, from prospecting to a partner to road mapping to implementation. That right there is, we've got to get some really good hardware in here so that they can continue to be in business and not be down.
And grow. It's scalable.
Right.
We're not putting something in this is only going to be good for 25 people, and then in another year I'm at 35 and we got to go back to the well. So
I think it even goes all the way down to the front side too, which is the workstation.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we see small business owners running out and they're buying, the Walmart couples Acer specials. Mm-hmm. They've spent $400 in computers, and I'm sorry, they're not good.
And it's hard to break that pattern.
Correct.
So that's the toughest part from our perspective, from Nate and I's perspective, is we have to kind of help educate and help bring the partners along so that they break that process of, well, I can just go to Best Buy and buy. I'm like, but that won't get you what you really need.
Correct.
And that won't get you what you need to stay up and running. it's just a computer, and they're not all the same.
Yeah, there's a difference,
There's
a big time
absolutely a
difference
difference.
between a Dell Inspiron and a Dell Latitude.
Right.
It is a consumer grade piece of equipment versus actual business grade.
Specs might look the same, but they're really not.
They're not
I mean,
at
all
all.
cars have 4 wheels.
Right.
But
There's a difference
Well, some
between a
do.
Honda and a BMW, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, every piece of hardware is a tool, right? So you get the tool that you need to get the job done, just like in any other industry, right? You don't want to get a hammer for
To
something.
put a screw in.
Yeah. Or, you want to be able to scale, so you might want to have a power tool eventually, right?
And just upgrading this infrastructure is it's looked upon as, well, like you said, like, why do I need to spend this money?
Right.
Everything seems to be working, but when you talk about productivity, loss of productivity, you talk about all the folks that you're paying hourly. If we can ease into this and roadmap it and budget for it, that you don't have people calling from 5 locations with a 15-minute problem every day. You got maybe calling once a month, maybe one person calling once a month so you get 4 or 5 other people back.
Yep.
I think one of the big things that we preach to our partners is, and it's part of the infrastructure, it's the warranty on the infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
It's the warranty on the PC, the warranty on the switch, the wireless access point, the firewall, and those warranties also come with support, right? So not only are we able to replace the equipment, and lots of times, like I know with Dell, we can have 4-hour turnarounds on equipment.
We just
Or
did it
next
recently
day.
with one. A
And-
server went down.
Even with the infrastructure, I mean, we have those warranties in place to where that hardware is replaced within 24 hours. That might seem like a long time, but in today's day and age, ever since COVID,
It's still
we
20
can't get a replacement product for maybe 10, 15, 20, 150 days, but we've got that process on the back end that's covering that warranty so that can be replaced within 24 hours and you're up as soon as possible.
Great.
Yeah, I think you were mentioning we had a partner had a server go down,
Yeah,
right?
that's within 4 hours, it's there.
Right.
If you lose a switch, you said you call the vendor and we
Right.
have something within 24 hours shipped directly to wherever
Correct.
we need it to go. So
Well, and Austin, from your standpoint, I mean, you're supporting this stuff, right? And so you want good stuff, right? It makes your job easier when you're not having to monkey with something that's not up to speed, right?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
He wants all the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, if you have the correct solutions right off the bat, right, you're going to have less issues going into the future and now and into the future. If you have something that's a little cheaper, you're always going to get what you pay for, right? So, it would be more man hours on us or your business to maybe not even guarantee that it's going to work right.
right.
So,
Well,
It's
downtime
like-
is money. Downtime
Well,
is money.
right. So if you've got 50 employees and 20 computers, okay, you got 20 people working on 20 computers all day long. The other 30 are working on machinery that rely on those computers. The whole production, all of it relies upon the backbone of the network, the infrastructure, the status of the PCs, how they are they warranted. It's all about uptime.
Yeah. It goes from the person answering the phone, taking an order,
Absolutely.
and a processing or manufacturing with a machine that's hooked to some type of device that's producing something, to even back to your billing department. Now, once all this stuff is done, sending out the bills.
Yep.
And you don't want somebody sitting there waiting. We talked about that last time. Like people just sitting waiting on machines.
And that goes back to your processor speed. That goes back to how much memory
Right.
you have in there.
And we tell all of our partners when we get to the point where we're road mapping and we're trying to get their things together and they keep pushing back on it, and we just break it down to what's your ROI. I mean, how much you can't really quantify 15 people standing around waiting on their computers or the network to reboot every day.
Yep.
But you can quantify it when you say how much you're paying them every hour. Let's do the math on that.
How long are they sitting around?
How long are they sitting around, and how much are we really losing?
And we're not asking clients to go, our partners to go out and buy, $5,000 laptops. We're looking at what the business needs, and and in most cases, a lot of the equipment is the same. There are certain people that do different tasks that require a little bit more machine or a little bit less. We want to
if you're doing CAD drawings, you're
Correct.
going to get a completely different machine than someone in billing.
Right.
Yep. And we want to make sure it works with what they're using software wise, right? I mean, one of the advantages we have today, and we've talked about this in the last episode also, is the cloud. The cloud has changed the way business runs.
Agreed.
It is really easy for a small business to get set up, which is why we do run into people when we come in and they have the Walmart router and they've got some couple Walmart machines, because it was 2 guys in a garage, and now they're 10, 15 people, and they've gone from $250,000 to $1 million business, and that's awesome. And we love to come right in and sweep next to them and then take their business to that next level.
The other good thing about, when you mentioned cloud, getting as much software as you can in the cloud. That's what happens when the power goes out in your building.
Yeah.
Everyone go home, you can work.
Yes, we saw that recently here.
Yep.
We had, what was it, last fall?
It was in June because I was
Okay.
gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So last June we had that freak thunderstorm roll through the city.
Yep.
Power was out everywhere. Our team didn't miss a beat.
Right.
Some guys didn't have power at their houses, right? So they went to the library.
We can't fix that.
Yeah.
We could if we would,
We
right?
didn't even have power in our office, so they couldn't even come here.
Right.
So they were just going other places to work, but everybody was able to work remotely.
Yep.
And that's that cloud, that scalability, that leverage we can,
I feel like anytime that you and Nate are meeting with the partners, I mean, if it's an option, let's start thinking.
At the end of the day, we always say, we want what we're doing as an IT MSP or as an IT company. We also want our partners doing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to be doing something that they're not doing, or
Right.
we don't want them doing something that we're not doing. We can operate here. If the lights go out right now, we can all go to Starbucks and what we want to do.
I always kind of feel like we're our partners' guinea pigs too when it comes to some of our tool sets that
true.
we use. We test it.
We try it on our own.
Yeah, and if it's no bueno,
Right.
we say,
Right.
get rid of this.
Right.
Well, and the cost for cloud with the equipment that you have, infrastructures used to be $20,000, $30,000 to go in because you're buying servers, you're running email, you're running ERP systems locally. Now you can, for $5,000, have a business start up, have good equipment, and leverage the cloud. And now you're on this monthly cost, and you're not having to support it anymore, right?
Well, it's not. You don't have a huge capital expense
Right
either,
off the rip.
right off the rip, right?
Right.
So you may go to a cloud system where you're paying X amount of dollars per month, but you didn't have to front $29,000 just for one piece of equipment because I need you to buy the whole infrastructure.
Well, I
So-
remember rolling out when we started moving to Office 365, right? Even when it was the BPAWS days and live at EDU, depending on education or business, that was our biggest selling point, was to give the cost comparison.
Mm-hmm.
We can put an Exchange server in, and we can run your 500 people off of it, and you're going to spend $30,000. Or we can move you into Office 365, and you have no infrastructure cost.
Right.
We're
You
just
have no
gonna slide
downtime.
you in it. Yeah,
You're up.
yeah.
How much
Yeah.
does that cost?
Yeah, and these days we can move clients to the cloud so fast. The tool sets have matured so much.
Yep.
To be able to just convert from local into the cloud, it's really quick. We see it. We're still seeing Office 365 conversions, even though I feel like everybody has moved there.
Pretty much. I mean, we've done some emergency ones too that went pretty well. So those were kind of fun, but we were able to get it. We were able to get through it. So the tool sets are a lot easier nowadays. The work is still there, but I mean, it's just it's more seamless.
I don't know if you guys have already talked about the whole partner relationship. Was that in the first episode?
There is a little. So the first episode, really, we just kind of scratched the surface on stuff.
Okay.
So feel free to dive deeper into it because it is part of the infrastructure conversation.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest initiatives we're taking right now, right? Is like marketing towards how we'll be our partners with our customers or clients, right? So we call them partners for a reason. So we want them to get and get the things they need and have the support they need to succeed, because when they succeed, we succeed, right? So if they get the hardware they need and it's set up correctly by us, then they're not going to have to call us as much. They're not going to have issues, right? And then that's good for us, right? We don't have to take the calls. We don't have to have the man hours into the phones and the guys. And in that situation, the customer has no problems. And so everyone wins in that scenario, instead of another scenario where you might call a guy and say, well, my thing's broken and I need to fix it, and it's $300 an hour. And the guy necessarily doesn't have that kind of relationship with you, or that buy-in, or that even need to make sure that the thing is set up correctly and that it's going to work in the future. Because if you call again, right, and if it's broken, he's going to get paid again.
Yep.
We don't have that relationship here.
That's the nice thing about the relationship, because it's ongoing. We're constantly doing maintenance. We're constantly applying patches and updates to firewalls and switches if there's a known bug. I mean, even recently we've seen in our MDR, we talked about this in our last team meeting, is our next generation antivirus found a security hole in a product
Mhm.
and removed it for us
Yep.
really quickly. I mean, we were waking up, coming into the office, and it already removed it off of all kinds of
I
stuff.
don't even
and
think
caught.
the issue had been
Public.
Public,
yeah,
Right.
that's true.
when we
Yep.
had already. So, and that's what sets us apart. I
That
mean,
is-
the
that-
relationship is worth its weight in gold when it
That-
comes to when you can trust and you can build that, and then it's budgetable. It's just, and you're meeting with them, and the proof is in the pudding in the end. I mean,
Mhm.
when it comes down to look at all the things that we've done with all of our partners and all the new partners that we take on, we go in and we do what we know works.
Yep.
And they,
It's our stack.
right, it's our staff.
It's hardware and software.
And with that specific example, like, let's go through if you were a business that didn't necessarily take the same steps that we do to protect you in those instances, right? If you had that breach happen and you weren't paying for, what we provide in
Mhm.
security level or the things that the way we set up things to be best practice, it could have snowballed really quickly, right?
Maybe you wouldn't even know you had the problem.
Right.
And they could have stolen personal information,
Yeah.
your credit card information, your bank information, and your
Yep.
business could have went from successful to
Failure of
gone in a day.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what's scary about the way a lot of the hacking has gone on these days. That security approach, it's such a layered approach, right?
Right.
Because you don't know if it's going to be a flaw in the program
Right.
itself, or is it somebody coming through your firewall? I mean, when we make recommendations to our partners, we're not doing it because, we just want you to spend all this money. We're looking at your business and trying to protect it. This is why we ask you to have next-gen firewalls, right?
Mhm.
And we want to be able to do that scanning at the firewall. That's why we want to have dual internet connections. So if your primary goes down because some guy hit a pole outside, your secondary's up, and sometimes that secondary is cellular. We're even moving into Starlink as an option for people now. We see them being used in residential spaces, and now it's being capitalized in business too.
Yep.
VPNs and running two-factor on our VPN connections, all that stuff then comes in, and the next layer is the antivirus, right? And for us, we're running MDRs also. So we have that next generation managed defensive response system that's looking at behavior, not just running from a DAT file trying to find a virus.
Correct.
It's watching what's going on in the computer now,
Right.
and it's actively taking action. And it's one thing that's really neat about these products is they're monitored by humans, right? There is some AI there, some automation, but in the end, there is a human checking
It's
everything.
quick,
Yeah,
too.
and it's fast. It is amazingly fast.
Yes.
For us to roll out of bed, rolling into the office, sitting down, logging in and finding out about a breach and seeing that one of our products already took care of it.
That's not even public.
Yeah.
We were wondering, is our software doing the right
Yeah.
thing at
Yeah.
first? And then we're like, yeah, it is. It's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yep.
And kudos for partnering
It
with
was
us.
so fast that I couldn't even make a cup of coffee through a Keurig. And Keurig coffee is fast.
Yeah, it was much quicker than that.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes back to the partner relationship. At least 50% of the work that I do in my position is proactivity, right?
Mm.
So maybe half the tickets come in if there's an actual issue. The other half is me proactively looking for things that we could improve upon or things that we could do to help our partners succeed. Because if they succeed, if they stay in business, right, if they grow, then they can pay us more money and they have more people, right?
I mean,
it comes down
yeah,
to
right.
That's-
So I
yeah.
even go as far as telling folks when we're prospecting our partners, when I'm meeting with them, I always tell them that we do a lot of different things that sets us aside. We upgrade Windows 10 to the latest version every month. How many patches and things did we do last month? 84,000?
Oh, automations. Yeah. We looked
Automations.
at our automation log, and we had 84,000 automations last month. And our
That's
system
remediations,
also,
automated remediations.
It's billing, it's all kinds of stuff. But 84,000
That's a lot.
automations, that's patching, that's monitoring, and that's taking care of, like, we have automations that your hard drive still fills up. Our RMM tool is going out and seeing that and going, okay, this guy needs to dump, and goes out and cleans up the downloads file, cleans up this file,
Yep.
drops the temp files, gets rid of the Windows
Right.
updates. Rolling out of MDRs and rolling into standards and compliance and other items. I mean, Dones, I think that this is your wheelhouse right here. I always see you're constantly digging in, taking things to the next level, security.
Sure. I mean, it's always going to be things that's going to come up anyway if you're serious about your business and security, right? So, our goal here is to have everything done before you even know it needs to be done, really, right? So, you'll get a list from your cybersecurity company or maybe a partner, another partner or a third-party vendor you're working with of things they want you to do, and you give it to us, and it's already done.
Yeah, that's what I love is cybersecurity.
When
cyber
it's not
insurance.
done, we make you do it,
Right.
or we try to make you do it.
Cyber insurance, I think, is important these days. We've seen so many attacks. At one point in time, we thought it was kind of a joke 10 years ago.
Mhm.
Today, it saves businesses, especially from a financial standpoint.
Mhm.
But our partners, when they're coming to us with their cyber insurance requirements and they've got this list, we're just going through check.
The only ones that maybe not, and if there's a cost associated with it.
There's a cost, yeah.
Yeah, if there's an item on there and we're like, yeah, it'd be good if they had it. There's a cost associated with it. The industry they're in, not really super necessary.
Or it's not applicable to their organization.
That's
even
what I
though,
mean. Correct.
let's multi-factor VPN when they're a cloud-based business.
Correct.
There's nothing to VPN into.
Correct.
Yep.
So
They
we
don't even have a
kind of try to
VPN.
apply logic.
But
to
yeah.
But it's on the list, right?
But yeah, most of the times, like Austin said, him and his team are getting us into a better spot proactively, where these partners come to us and they're like, oh man, this is great. There isn't that much on there. And the other really nice thing about the proactivity from the security and standardization part is, because I think that we've been doing it now for a year or two, where we've been, hey, this just came out, we need to do this, need to do this, need to do this. There was a lot of pushback at first. They're like, why do we need to change this again? But I feel like the trust is there now, with a lot of the partners, and we're asking for them to do these things to get up to industry standards, and it's pretty much nowadays like, okay, yep, we believe in you guys. We're listening to what you're saying.
It's hard to break those habits.
Yeah.
It's hard to convince someone that you do actually two-factor at the gas pump.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I don't understand why your email isn't important in putting fuel in your car. It
Right.
just should be the same. So, we've done a really good job of taking a lot of people to the next level from a security standpoint, and we've also helped a lot of partners save money. And Austin worked with me on one where we had a small partner that they were being told, hey, you don't have this turned on. You don't have this turned on. This is your premium. And he and I looked at it and we were like, how do they know this? They wouldn't know this. They don't have our credentials. I can guarantee you they don't have ours, because we are two-factored. So,
They don't.
at minimum. So, but at the end of the day, we were able to save them like a third of their premium by just a couple of emails of pushback.
Yeah.
And that's all about the standards of compliance that we can do across the board for everyone.
Yeah, I love the scans sometimes that we get provided from like the insurance companies, and it's like you're not meeting these compliance, and it's like that's not even their IP address. They didn't even scan their firewall. You're looking at it and it's talking about some kind of PIX firewall or something weird, and that's not what we're running.
Right.
And you're like, hey, that's not even our IP address. Because hey, we don't have these ports open.
Right.
And we go back and we're like, you guys have a typo in your scan, and they come back and rates go down. And
most of the time, it's literally simply a guess from those
Yeah.
companies, right? And it's a good guess,
Yeah.
honestly. I mean, most of these companies, they don't have these things.
Correct.
Well, it's
Right.
like you get the flyer in the mail that says you need a new roof, and you're like, that's not my house.
Yeah.
Right.
Most people probably
wrong
do.
But then you're like, do I need a new roof?
Do I need a new roof?
Yeah, it makes a difference. So with small business, with cloud, the elasticity of it, servers on site, do we think the current small business model that we're deploying, or maybe even seeing sometimes we're coming across, do you think they're scalable? Do you think that small businesses can scale in most cases?
I believe that 99% of our partners are absolutely scalable.
Yeah.
And if they're not, then we make sure that we roadmap them to where they can be.
Right.
Because
the only thing I can think really that's maybe sometimes wouldn't be just scalable just like this is if they're not, a lot of the stuff isn't in the cloud and they have a physical server, and it's not like just something that, oh, hey, we can give you all this extra space when we quoted this and built it for you
Right.
and implemented it, you didn't tell us about this growth, this 4 companies that you bought, and now you have all this data on here. So that's really one of the only but again, that's why we're going back and trying to get as much as we
that's
can
why
in the cloud.
that's why we have our stack. That's why we use what we know what works, to where you can go out and buy businesses to do your blue in the face. All we got to do is add a couple pieces of equipment to it, and they're all on board. We're all in the same system. We're all under the same roof, even though we're in different states.
That's amazing that you say that from a scalability standpoint. I mean, how many of our partners have we have
New
purchased.
location. New
Yeah,
location.
Absolutely.
New location.
And we can
Yeah.
just roll with it instantly because of the products that we're using.
Your phone system, boom, here you go.
Yep.
Want to open up a new location in 3 weeks? We got you covered. You're good. You're scalable.
Yeah.
And I don't know that there's been anybody that's not scalable. It's because we're still road mapping them. That
Yep,
would
I
be
would
the
agree.
only thing. Or
Yeah, we're years out.
or maybe there's no growth and they're not going to scale, but it still doesn't matter. We're still road mapping.
Yeah, it might be a new partner, right? And
Right.
we're still in the middle of changing over some of the gear to make it
Right.
better for what we'd like to see, making it secure, and then taking them to that next level so they can grow. And we understand taking over partners all the time that we're not going to walk in the door and spend $10,000.
Well-
We're going to walk in the door and make that roadmap. I mean, that's
Right.
that's where you guys come in. You know,
And just because you can buy it for $100 and you can buy it for $1,000 doesn't mean it's $100. Yeah, they might do kind of the same thing, but they don't. Like you said earlier, there's a difference between a Fiat and a BMW or whatever,
Yeah.
right? So that's where we can be better at supporting our partners, is when we have that visibility into the networks to fix the problems much quicker than trying to log into 14 different devices that you collectively shouldn't really have in your
Yeah.
network anyways.
well, and that scalability, I think, also helps us with being able to future-proof our partners,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, and just think about where we were, not that many years ago. Maybe we weren't as scalable with some of the stuff that we were using. And then we have these larger companies that are going out and they're buying other entities, and they can't give us 45 days notice because it's all hush hush and
Right,
it's
due
under wraps.
diligence, all
Correct.
that good stuff.
So it's
right.
like, hey, we got a new, up in northern Ohio, we got a new place we need lit up, and it's like, okay, you
Right.
give us 10 working days. We'll try to get some equipment. If not, we'll throw some loaners in there. We can build you a phone system, have it all connected back to your corporate. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, our
Yeah, we're
biggest-
not 30 days. We're not 90 days. We're not
Right.
6 months out to get this all done.
correct.
We'd appreciate more than 10 days.
Well,
but
yeah.
Well,
pickle, we can do it.
Right.
And COVID has really made the supply chain horrible for that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we have invested a lot of time and money and effort in the last 18 months of having spare equipment because of growth for our partners. That it might take us 6 months to get something now, and things have gotten better and faster. We've had orders on out there for a year, and they show up finally, and things are starting to come faster. But we can roll to a client to a product right now and get them going, and then when the product actually that they ordered comes in, we can then redeploy it again so they have that, and the downtime is minimal.
Like lead times wasn't
Yeah.
even a thing
Yeah,
in 2020.
correct.
It was not a thing. We ordered something, it was here in 2 days,
Yeah,
maybe the next day. Now, if you order something, it might get here in 14.
Right.
So we push a lot on the higher need partners to say, if we're going to have this turnover or we're going to have these growth spurts, let's roadmap that as well, and let's get some equipment
In
on
stock.
hand
Yeah.
so that we can make sure that the new employee hits the ground running with a full toolbox.
Yep.
Well, that's one thing I love about the cloud. It's so future proofing. It's so scalable. It really makes our partners be able to grow on the fly super fast, super quickly. And products like, whether it's G Suites or Microsoft Office 365, they're constantly growing themselves and evolving, and we're constantly getting new updates. We're getting improvements. Office 365, prime example of how far they have come in their anti-phishing, right? And their spam and their spoofing and all of those products. They have grown leaps and bounds.
Yeah, every product we have is always constantly growing and improving. We don't want to buy anything that's a single use product anymore, right? That's just going to stay.
We used
the
to
way
have
it
like
is.
a handful of, I won't name names, but we used to have all these
Different.
spam filters. We used to have all these different products that we used, and Microsoft's done a really good job of trying to rein that in under their umbrella.
Yeah, and they continue to improve constantly.
Absolutely.
And if you actually follow the advice that Doanes' team provides, our clients can be so successful in the cloud. It's night and day than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. By far.
Cloud is the most scalable, most flexible, most powerful option you can have, right? It just depends on where your business is. You want to pay for something
all about the
premium.
cash.
It is.
Premium, or you could get something a little less premium, and you get something a little less premium. But it's really just depends on your needs.
And we look at it that way when we're looking at roadmaps and things like that. I'm gonna look at something and say, why would I pay $300,000 for a solution that I can get for $100,000?
Sure, we're always going to offer the thing that makes the most sense for you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's cloud is awesome too from downtime. Last episode kind of talked about having a laptop stolen and how quickly I was able to have it replaced and be up and running because our products are all cloud-based.
Right.
I didn't have to think about anything. It's just like, boom, I'm ready to go.
Yep.
As far as future proofing goes, I mean, that's our stack. I mean, it's years. It works for years.
Yeah. There's still hardware on site. There will be for a long time.
Yeah, there's
we will always need our firewalls to secure your physical space. We'll need switches and wireless access points, and they will age, and new channels and new A, B, C, whatever it's going to be broadcasting wise is going to come out. They're going to be better quality. They're going to get faster, and so that stuff's always going to rotate, and we're always going to be able to scale and future-proof you and plan. I mean, the VCIO office helps our partners see what they're investing into their hardware, why they're investing this into their hardware or their software, and their infrastructures overall, and how to take their businesses to the next level.
Every solution and product you get has an end of life, right? You may not recognize it or know that, but it has an end of life from either the vendor's point of view or a update and security point of view. And I don't want to speak for any other IT department or company, but if you had an example of an IT department or company that's maybe wanted to save you some money up front and buy used computers or refurbished computers for everyone, and they're already 2-3 years into their life, maybe you're going to save that money up front, right? But then the end of life is going to be just that much shorter.
Right.
So instead of it going being end of life in 2027, you're looking at 2025, and then you're ending up with a product that is either not supported or going to be slower, and you're going to lose productivity on your employees. So everything we get is going to be, we're never ever going to recommend something that's end of life or close to end of life.
And there might be a lot of folks too that see from a network infrastructure. Some companies might be like, well, it's end of life, but it's still working.
Right.
It's still fine.
That
just means
until
it dies,
Right.
you have no support on it, and good luck getting it replaced.
So just kind of taking this and putting it all together and thinking about my infrastructure as a business owner and all that stuff. The one thing that I think that we haven't talked about at all about infrastructures is backups. How do you back up infrastructures in this day and age? I mean,
But we don't.
Can we back up cloud?
What is backup?
We don't.
We're firmly against backups.
We don't.
I thought we used USB external drives, and
got a
we
bunch
just
of
rotated
SanDisk
those.
thumb drives.
I had floppies on my desk.
I think actually,
SneakerNet. Are we going back to SneakerNet?
I mean, I have an interesting story that I share with a lot of our partners when we talk about the backups, and we all know about the pipeline. We all know about they paid the ransom.
Yep.
And I was with a partner, and we were talking about backups. They wanted to know what their restore and how long they were going to be down in the event something happened. We delved into the scenario that they were wanting to talk about, and they actually said, well, why did the pipeline have to pay the ransom? Because I said, we've never paid ransom. We've never paid ransom. If you're a partner of ours, we've never paid ransom. We've had to pay ransom for the people that didn't pay us for support, but that was a little too late, right? So, but they said, so you mean to tell me that you have a better backup solution in place than a multi-billion-dollar company? And I said, absolutely.
I guess so.
I mean, it's obvious. I wanted to call and get on the radio and go, why didn't they just call us and have us implement our backup solution? Because they would have saved $7 million. It would have only cost them $4 million, right? I'm just kidding. It wouldn't have cost them very much. But my thing is, the way that we have it designed, the way that we have it segmented, the old ways of backups, the old corporate ways of backups, those are no longer valid. They're huge holes in your security system. So I think that's one thing that I really, really focus on is how well ours is what I would call almost undetectable on a network. You can't find it.
Yeah.
And but by the time you do find it, or if you get tired of looking for it, you're looking for the low-hanging fruit. You're like, I'm not going to keep looking for this. Maybe they don't have a backup.
Right. And what's
but when you can't find ours, that's even better.
What's cool about ours too is it's not even just a backup solution; it's a disaster recovery solution. So we're going through and making sure that the devices we have in that perform your daily backups, both physically and then off into the cloud, are able to then run as standalone units in the event they need to. Now,
They can become a server.
correct.
So
Could they
you
run
can-
your entire environment? Maybe not. Could
Right.
they get your crucial pieces of your environment back up? Absolutely. And then your restore pains, times and oh my gosh, we're down for days. Those are going to lessen too because of a lot of the things that we're doing from the sysadmin side on getting those revved up.
Yeah, I
There's
think-
a lot of data. A lot of people,
Oh, yeah.
there's no housekeeping of data.
No.
People don't want to throw anything away. They just buy
Need it,
storage.
need it,
Storage is
need it,
cheap.
need
I'm
it.
never going to get rid of it. I'm going to keep it till everyone, never wants to know about it. But at
Right.
the end of the day, that takes a long time to restore. So like what Adam was referring to is our process is we can take that server that's downed and run it in another instance, get the partners up and running, and then we can restore data back to the servers and the equipment that's needed after hours, to where the whole company's not shut down, and we can get those services
I
restored.
want to kind of touch back to a couple things. What you mentioned is, how our backups, we're trying to hide them, right? The devices, and what happened in history, right? So in the past, as IT administrators, we got lazy, right? 10 years ago, everything was integrated. Everything was using Active Directory with single sign-on. And then hackers started breaking into our networks, compromising accounts. And we learned a long time ago, maybe it's because we're in small business and we can shift quickly, and we're not an enterprise and we have to go through committees and different things like that. We
We need the board.
we actually sat down quickly and pivoted. We were like, okay, what do we need to do? What things can we do to stop this? We started decoupling our backup units. They're no longer integrated. Then we started hiding them. Then we started two-factoring them. We just kept doing everything. So
It's
Hold
good.
on. So when we were talking about decoupling, and in the end, we took every precaution we could to try to make sure our backup units were off networks in a way that they weren't easily found, so that a hacker, and then I know your team goes in and checks backups
weekly.
and they're actually restoring files and making sure that, because we've seen backups be taken over and somebody sit there for 6 months and own the backup.
Yep.
And that's where it's devastating, is the
That's
company had a
right.
backup,
Right.
right? But 6 months, somebody's been in there for
Not
6
now.
months. Yeah.
Well, they just changed the encryption key
Correct.
and then just let the backups run to where your retention
That's
of 60 days is over. Now you
Correct.
can't restore. Now you're hosed. Now you got to pay the ransom.
Yep.
With us, they never find the device.
Yep. So
Well,
weekly
they-
backups, and then
They can find it. It's just we make
They
it
can't.
harder.
Right.
Yeah.
They got a two-factor.
Yeah.
one of the really nice things that Dones even came up with was, hey guys, like maybe we should take all of our documentation on backups out of our centralized documentation storage,
Yeah.
because if that were to somehow get breached,
Breached.
they have everything.
Right.
They have all the creds.
Keys to the castle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like to every server, every backup. So it's not even stored with our normal documentation.
Yeah,
Right.
for us, we have, just to get to our data, it's like you have to jump to a couple places to get passwords,
Yeah.
and then having two-factor to that to make sure that all of our stuff.
Yep.
Because if the MSP gets breached, then your backups, it doesn't matter what you have.
Yeah,
So-
again, I always say that the backups is the most important
Yep.
service.
You're
that
only
we
as
offer.
good as your last backup.
By
Period.
far.
Having that local backup, having good retention, sending it off-site to the cloud, that all makes a difference. Or even today, because we have cloud products, right? We're kind of doing reverse backup in a sense.
Microsoft 365
Right,
gets
we're
pulled.
bringing it down, yeah.
It's all multi-layered in
Yeah.
a way that, if your building literally burns down, it ceases to exist, then you still have backups. If it's compromised in ransomware, you still have a backup somewhere. It's layered.
Mhm.
So, there's always going to be something. There's physical backups on site. There's cloud backups. There's multiple versions of each different one. There's contingency policies on contingency policies, right?
Yep. So moving away from backups, which we could probably talk forever about backups.
And we're going to dig in deeper next week on
Right.
on the cloud in general.
That's true. So let's talk about maintenance, monitoring, and security best practices for IT infrastructure. What are we doing? What are we doing for our partners as part of that, for these infrastructures, for PCs?
I had somebody submit a ticket recently with one of our partners, and And I don't know exactly what they were asking for, either for cybersecurity or one of a third-party vendor or something, but they put in a ticket. It was like, how do you secure our computers, basically. It was like the most generalized question in the world. And I had to call her. I was like, I don't know how to answer that, because there's just I could give you 30
We could go on for days.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't even know where to start. So, I mean, I still don't know how to start. I mean,
Right.
Well, if you want your PC secured, I'm just going to take away your user ID.
Yeah, take away your end user.
Right. It's
No one
secure.
can use it.
It's secure.
Right.
We're going to unplug it from the network, and then
Hey.
we're going to get rid of the user, and then it's good. It's just going to be there. So.
Yep.
it's all going to come down to layers again.
Oh,
So it probably all starts with when we onboard you. We install our agent, which is just a very small program, right? That we install on everyone's computer, and it gets everything started. So antivirus, our inventory system, everything that it needs to do. It starts off automations. So the first thing it does is it starts clearing out your temporary files, gets your computer running better than it was.
Creates a healthy environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets your computer up to date. I mean, it does a lot of things. Just the first thing you do. And a lot of the times we automate it and push that out. So maybe it's on your computer in 5 seconds, and it just gets right to work.
And it's got the AV, it's got the MDR,
Yep.
it starts looking at patching.
Yep.
Oh, look, this computer's way out of date. Let's start applying these and schedule reboots and taking the security each time, tightening it up. And then, you're meeting with these partners, and then maybe in 6 months they put in a next generation firewall.
Right.
They replace that Linksys router that, somebody put like one of these, open onion routers on it or whatever, and it's never been patched since then, and it's got security holes, and putting something on it that constantly is being patched, constantly being monitored.
Well, patching is exactly that. I mean, think about all the vulnerabilities that we hear about and all the attacks and all these breaches. It's because something wasn't patched.
Yeah.
And
Everything in IT comes down to change.
Right.
If you're a law firm, like, the laws change, but in IT, they laws change however often, but in IT things change on a daily
Constantly.
basis, an hourly
Constantly, right.
basis.
Yeah.
So that's what these updates are you're getting on your computer, right?
Yeah.
So like Microsoft comes out with weekly updates, daily critical updates, because there's something that someone found that they could take advantage of. And if you don't have that, then they're going to take advantage of you.
I mean, Kronos is a prime example of not patching.
That was an absolute.
Look at that
That was
breach.
devastating.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, we had partners calling us being like, can you help us do payroll?
Right.
They just didn't know how to do payroll, or
Right.
how to track their hours for their employees.
And that's
That was a
another
huge
thing
breach.
that we also take into consideration. Back to the cloud, we'll get right back. I'll squirrel for a second, but I always say we can protect you to some extent. However, if you want to put all your eggs into this cloud basket, we need to understand what they're doing on their end to protect your data versus just selling you space and service. Like if we don't have a good feeling that they're doing the right things that we want them to do, then we would not recommend you use them. We would go to a better
Yeah,
product.
if they're not reputable, right? For
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, back to the always having this hardware that patches itself, and that's from a network standpoint. That's your firewall, that's your APs, that's your switching, that's everything. And there's a point that you made earlier. It's there's something that costs $1,000, something that costs $100.
Right.
Now the $100 something could still make you function, but it's not doing all the other
They might
stuff
look
on
the
it.
same or
Right.
similar,
but
but
it's not doing all the other functions
Correct.
that you really need in your environment. And then, Austin, like you were mentioning, all the pieces that we're doing from a hardware standpoint from the PC, then you go from, all right, we've secured the hardware as best we possibly can from an automation standpoint and the OS. Now what do we do to help secure the end user? That gets into another portion of our security
web,
suite,
phishing,
dark web
right.
training campaigns. Because honestly, guys, we all know, and we've probably said it numerous times ad nauseum, the end user is where the
that's
people
your
are
biggest
getting it.
vulnerability in any organization is your end user.
It's the end user. So trying to help them at least, with quarterly reminders, quarterly training. I know, you guys had also sent out in the past around the holidays, hey, just a reminder, be looking
Right.
at extra diligent for UPS, Amazon,
right.
Walmart.
And the FBI is not going to email you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Well-
that goes back to, like, where could you even begin to
Right.
quantify how we're trying to secure a computer?
Yep.
Well, end user security right there, right?
Yeah.
This is why that you meet with your partners.
Right.
Because what's the first thing that you start doing with the user lists? How many times have you had user
Termed
lists where
users.
you've gone in and
I've
said,
gone in and saying, why do we? They're like, well, none of these people work here anymore. I'm like, well, you should have told us. Like,
right,
we
nobody
had-
told us. I mean,
So I mean, that's
And
the
they've
part
been
of
gone
it,
for
making
6
that
months.
relationship better, making that relationship better, and making them partners to where they can just call it off to us. But there's a lot of loopholes when folks they don't partner with us. And we do all this cleanup and all these audits for a reason. We require the 2-factor. We require all these things, and to review that every quarter, every month, however you want. You can't do it enough.
Right.
correct.
You really can't.
I mean, we
Because-
have an automation tool that runs basically audits against every one of our partners' networks every month.
Yep.
And you guys go through and you look for key areas to secure, or if you missed something or something, popped up and you didn't know about it. And you guys are making changes, I'm sure, constantly.
You don't want to have to fix things.
No.
Okay, and I get that because I did support forever. No one ever wants to have to fix something because no one ever calls you and says, "How are you today?" They call you and they say, "It's broken and it's broken bad. I need you to fix it."
Yeah.
Well, on the flip side of that is us going to them and saying, "Before this breaks,
Yep.
can we fix it?
Because it will.
Because it's gonna break."
Yeah.
And if we can stop it from breaking and just let him and his team do their thing, then we're going to be way better off.
Sure.
Austin wants to play on his Xbox. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's honest. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't want to be in your
doesn't.
network fixing things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
It's
I see
already done it.
Yeah,
That's
when I
better
see
than-
when I see my system administrators out there just chilling, I know we're in a good spot.
Absolutely.
He's out there,
Cool.
feet it up like this, and he's
Right.
playing on the giant screen Xbox.
Yeah.
We know everything's secure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, it's actually it's a good sign to see when our engineers can take that time because they've spent so many nights and days
Yep.
doing all of this, coming up with these following standards, implementing these standards, securing and hardening these networks to the best that they can.
Increasing the score of the infrastructure
Yeah.
and the integrity of the data is what this man and our teams do all the time. And I say that all the
And
time.
that's
I
why
say,
none of the end users like him.
that's why no one
he
likes
makes,
him.
He makes their lives harder.
He doesn't like people.
Harder in the
he's-
short term, but easy in the long run.
Right,
100%.
right. And
Maybe you
that's
don't
the-
realize that
right.
now, but
But what the partners don't know is we don't like them either, so it's all good, right?
Cut. But that's the one of the things that Jason referred to is we're running this tool set every month, and we're looking to improve that score constantly. I mean, even if it's a 94, yay, some people think that's great. It's just an A minus kind of, right? It's not like an A plus. So we want to be 98, 99, 100.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we've talked about antivirus, we've talked about strong passwords. Encryption is another layer there. We don't see too much encryption on workstations for most of our vendors. We do see encryption in backups and other products we're using. Obviously, we're doing regular daily data backups. We're, setting permissions on stuff. We're doing pen testing. We're doing all of these steps just to make sure that our partners are secure. Is there anything, guys, that you can think of that from a security maintenance monitoring that we may not have talked about, that hot plate or hot item that you guys are constantly seeing?
I mean, we could jump back real quick. I don't know that we really delved into like the password requirements thing in full detail.
Yeah.
There is a government agency that is constantly updating the standards, and that's what these guys are kind of going out and looking at and determining, hey, what's best when we throw that term around, standard policies, it's not just us making things up willy-nilly.
Right.
So now what we've been doing in the last, few months is changing the password guidelines. So that complexity has gone from, a shorter one with weird characters, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, to let's go longer and let's use a passphrase instead. You don't need the complexity. You don't need the special characters. You don't need it to ever reset any longer.
Right.
You can literally just create a passphrase that's personal.
Which used to
you.
be like, in the back in the day, that was like not what you wanted
Right.
to do.
Yep.
You wanted like uppercase, lowercase,
Right.
characters, symbols, things that you could never. And now it's like a couple spaces and just like passphrases.
Literally a sentence. Just
Yeah,
a
a
sentence,
sentence.
That's personal to you.
Yep.
Makes it easy to remember.
Don't have to expire every 90 days anymore and have a
No.
post-it note with
Yep.
every password that you think you've come up with in the past 5 years.
Or you're
And
just
I
adding a
didn't-
1 to the end of it, and
and
like
that's-
Bob
and
2,
honestly,
Bob
that's-
3, or whatever.
That's why it's changed, because they know most people keep their
Right.
passwords on a post-it note under their keyboard.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh shoot, what was it last 90 days? You know,
Document 7. We're going to make it document 8 this time.
It makes
I mean,
it
I've seen
easier for everyone to
forever.
guess, as it comes back to social engineering, which is the number one way people get hacked, which is literally just people to people. Somebody walks up to your desk, opens up, lifts up your keyboard. There's your password. They can be you. They can steal the company's money, and it's you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit about this, and we kind of breezed over it. But this goes back to us monitoring dark web for our partners, right? Because that's what shows up on the dark web: our credentials and passwords. And we will see credentials released for an end user, and we'll try them and realize that they work. And then we get a hold of the end user right away.
That's when it's like, oh boy,
That's when
not
it's
good.
but also we treat
that's
those
happening constantly
we
these
treat
days.
those notifications like almost. I always refer when I'm meeting with partners, I tell them that the importance of the dark web monitoring is almost as important as a termination.
Yeah.
If it's not looked upon quicker
Yep.
within our organization, like it comes in that fast, and we treat them that way. And it's been a little bit of a process to show this data. Like, okay, these folks did the training, and now we fished them, and now these people need to do the training again, and it just takes time to get that going. But
the entire time while that piece is happening, everything's still getting monitored on the back end.
Right. We still got everything running to protect their clickability.
Yeah. So I think we could probably go on and on and on. I know I can talk IT all day long, especially about security. But I want to thank you guys for coming.
Sure. Thanks for having us.
And next week, we're going to deeper dive into cybersecurity. So I hope you guys come back. Dones, you're always welcome to come back, and Dwayne and
I
Adam.
think I've had my fill.
You had your fill, so
enough.
we'll set different.
Yeah, I'm never
certainly
coming back.
Change up stuff. So
Is there going to be food next time?
Is there going to be food next time?
So you guys can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can subscribe to this podcast. MIS, we have a new rebranding website coming out, and all this is going to continue to launch through it. So I thank you guys, and that's a wrap.
There's still nothing on those cards.
No, there
They're
is.
empty.
Look. So.